Dave, we talked last time about communication and the importance of getting it right on a one-to-one basis. But I guess there's a whole different challenge when you're actually communicating to a whole group of people, or
Mm,
even when you're on the other side of the communication, sat in the audience listening to the
yeah.
communication. So I know you've got a couple of horror stories of being sat in the audience when the message didn't quite land as the communicator had intended. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I suppose the real classic one that I recall as a singularly memorable experience was there was a round of downsizing or upsizing or right sizing or whatever the company was calling it at the time going on, and my whole team, about 30 of us, got asked into an office which normally sat about 10. So we were crammed in the office, and our boss came in and said, well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is I've kept my job. The bad news is you guys are all at risk. And that was I mean, look, it's really preceding Ricky Gervais by about 5 years, I think, with that one. But that was probably one of the most memorable ways I've heard somebody getting it completely and utterly wrong.
Yeah,
And it was such a demotivating effect that I don't think that person ever recovered, to be honest, in terms
yeah.
of respect from the team after that.
Mm. And do
So
you think that person actually recognised what they'd done and how that had landed and what impact it would have on the team and on their own reputation?
I don't think I actually think they planned to do it that way out of a
Okay.
misplaced belief that it was going to be motivating. They'd really not seen what the audience were wanting, and what the audience were wanting was facts
Yeah.
and how it's going to impact them. And this person had just completely assumed that we would be all happy that they were okay without having any regard for what we were going to go through. So I think there was a genuine miscalculation, but there was also a very big lack of empathy, I think, with that one.
Yeah.
It was quite a moment. The silence in the room you could have cut with a hammer.
Yeah. And I think we said last time, didn't we, that the communication is 100% about how it lands with the
Yeah,
other person, and I don't think that's any different in a group as it
no,
is in a one-to-one situation.
no,
It's just as important.
yeah,
And it is interesting, when I coach leaders, it's interesting how when you're doing a communication, it's very easy to get into a kind of tick list situation where,
yeah,
you treat it as a transactional process. So here are the things I need to cover.
mm,
Right, tick, I've done that, tick, I've done that, tick, I've done that, tick, I've done that, job done. But
yeah,
actually, it's a bit more subtle than that.
yeah,
And as we said last time, it's about thinking about what is the message, what is the key message, what's the messages or that the audience will feel most passionately about and will be
mm,
most,
mm,
kind of life changing in some respects. So if you've got a whole group of people who you're telling are going to go through a reorganization, then there's some people sit there and say, "Oh, great, I might get that redundancy I've been waiting
yeah,
for in that package."
yeah,
A few might say, "Oh, that doesn't sound good. I don't want to be made redundant because I've just changed my mortgage or just started a family."
mm,
And maybe another group who say, "What do you mean redundancy? I thought this was a job for life. Well, I've only
yeah,
just joined," and somebody. So you've got a whole range of people kind of needing some kind of certainty.
yeah,
And I certainly know of one communication I was involved in the planning for, and this was about outsourcing and offshoring. And the key message was that the company was going to reduce permanent staff by about 20% because it was actually legitimate business case to actually put stuff offshore and to another partner who was better equipped to do that work.
yeah,
But we when we planned the presentation, right up until the evening before the presentation, gave a whole kind of top down. This is the company. You'll remember our results from 6 months ago. This is how all the territories are doing. This is what the market is doing. This is what the IT market is doing. And there was about 40 minutes of preamble setting the context, as kind of starting from out here and zoning in.
mm,
And the intention was after 40 minutes, we're going to tell people. And so we're going to have a reorganization
mm,
and the staff numbers are going to be reducing by 20%.
yeah,
And somebody who was coaching us came in and says, "What on earth are you people doing?" And he took the communication and he just kind of turned it up like an
mm,
upturned pyramid. Just you need if I'm coming into that presentation, he said, you guys haven't even thought what would be on my mind. First thing will be, why is the company getting everybody together at 9 o'clock in the morning? This must be important. What are you going to tell me? And everything you say, they'll be thinking, am I going to be made redundant? Am I going to be made redundant? Am I going to be So they won't be listening to all the corporate stuff. That's all they'll be thinking about. So even the eve of that presentation, we just took the advice and just turned it round. And I was sat in the audience while one of my colleagues was presenting that, and it landed perfectly in the sense of message understood. Clearly still a very difficult message for people to grasp. But I guess as soon as they'd heard the message, there's going to be a 20% reduction in staff, it then became a very richer conversation between the person presenting and the audience, because they actually, and almost like they didn't really need the slides, because it just became a conversation of people asking questions and leading them through what was going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that gives the audience a sense of respect. They feel that they've been respected, because the last thing you want, I mean, you will probably acknowledge this as well. A lot of the time in our careers, the first thing we've heard about headcount reductions has been the local news at 8 o'clock in the morning, because it had to be released to the stock exchange before, start of business or something like that. And that's the worst way for people to hear something. And I think you want your audience to feel that you respect them when you're giving them these sorts of messages. And I think it's so important to display that respect. There are some things I feel you should never ever say when communicating to a large audience. One, you won't be able to read this PowerPoint slide. Why put it in the deck? Why put it in the deck? The other one is, this stuff on here is not really any of your concern. Oh well, so patronize us, why don't you? So there are certain things you should never do, and even down to the point of proofreading, because I mean, I'm the kind of person, if I see a slide and it's got one typo on it, my brain just concentrates on that typo, almost to the point that it ignores the message that's being said to it. And I've got a line in one of my training slides about communication that says, pay attention to dovetail, because it will kill you. Or never always make sure you recognize the importance of the massage, because those little typos will just kill you. And it's the littlest thing, and it's really important, but it's really hard to get it right. But the littlest thing can kill that message, I think.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is about authenticity, isn't it? And authenticity of the message, and how you kind of get that one across. And I remember you telling me the story that I think I was there actually. Somebody asked the question about what will happen with this, and surely if we do that, if we offshore everything, surely our quality will go down, and so on. And the presenter responded, what they thought was honest and a little bit vulnerable, and said, right, I used to think like that. But then I learned that wasn't the case. Yeah.
And that is immediately you've set a division between the questioner and the answerer. And I've also seen that happen where in big presentations where someone has said something like, we're happy with any questions you have. And someone will ask the first question and it's patently obvious they're happy with every question you have apart from that one.
Yeah.
And the person stood on stage is looking at the other person to say, you're dead, and if you say something like, we're happy to talk about anything or to discuss anything, you have to mean it if you're talking to large groups, because there will be somebody, like you said earlier, there'll be a whole range of reactions to what you're saying, and there will always be the one person who wants to take issue with it. So if you say things like, we're happy to take any questions, and then you're not, you've fluffed it again.
Yeah. And I think there's, talking about what to take questions on and what you know about, what you don't know about. I think the opposite is also true in terms of being vulnerable and talk to the audience about what you don't know and what you can't talk about. So I know a senior exec who we were setting up a project, and he went down to Norwich to address the project team right at the start of the project. And you'd kind of got a mix of people. There was only 50% of the project team are actually from the company. The other 50% were from an offshore partner. who'd sent people onshore, and they were meeting this person for the first time, and he stood up in front of them, and he had to kind of endear that team to him and say, I'm the sponsor for this program, and I really want it to succeed, and you are the people that are going to help me to get it to succeed. But in terms of vulnerability, he really got my respect, because he said, you guys are all IT guys and you're going to do a lot of work on different insurance products and so on. He said, don't ask me about insurance products. Don't come to me for product design. He said, he used this great phrase. He said, I'm a content-free zone when it comes to product design. And everybody kind of laughed a bit nervously, thinking, oh, are we allowed to laugh at these exec jokes? I think he wants us to laugh. But actually, the real subtlety was saying that I'm quite happy to stand up here and be vulnerable. And I'm quite happy to say what I do and what I don't do, because almost it strengthens what I do, because I do it really well. And I'm not coming along to tell you what your job is. That's your job.
And that's what you want from a senior stakeholder or sponsor. You want someone who'll back you up. But you don't necessarily need them to be a product expert. You just want someone who can manage things and support you in that way. And I think that level of authenticity is very important.
If you had to pick out 2 words from that whole conversation, it would be authenticity and vulnerability. And I know it's something that we've talked a lot about recently. So probably worth next time we get together, just explore that a bit further and talk about the importance of authenticity and vulnerability in leadership and in communication, as we've said.
Yeah, it'd be good. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dave. Take care.
Take care, mate.